Let's talk about the value switch and the multi-switch. So the value switch has here some input properties. By default, there is the case as an int where you can define which output should be routed to the output. We also have a set method, and you also can add or remove cases down here. The value switch is very flexible because you basically can bind any Ventuz object to it. So let me show you that quickly. Let's use maybe a string variable. Let's also use maybe the int variable. And as you can see, if we connect now to our input 0, we connect our string, and to input 1, we connect our int. Then you can see already, let's give it a name, let's in text. And as you can see now, our case is 0, so input 0 will be routed to the output. If we change that to 1, then our input 1 will be routed to the output. Okay? You are also able to set the case with an event and that argument, as you remember in the previous tutorial about the events, right? So let me show you that as well. So if we put in here an event, and that event has by default argument 1, let's bind it to the set, and let's bring that guy to 0. And again, our argument of the bounded event is 1, right? So if I invoke this guy now, then you can see our switch changed to case number 1. If I change this argument to 0 and I invoke it, then you can see our switch changed the case to 0, basically to the argument number. Let's talk about the multi-switch. By default, the multi-switch don't has any inputs. To create an input, you simply have to create one down here with that add output drop down. And let's say I want to have input A is an integer, and I want to have input B is a string. And now you can see in the inputs, by default, we have basically input A with 2 input values, and we have input B created with 2 input values. Okay, so an integer and a string. Over here, we can switch with the index. We basically can switch between these inputs. Okay, so let's call that 1. Sorry, let's call that 1. And this here is the string. So we have some text 0 and 1. Let's make it 1. And here you can see now in the outputs, our output A is 0 because it is 0, and our output B is 0 as well as a string because we gave it the name 0. If we switch now to input 1, then you can see the outputs switching accordingly. With this operation, you can define how this node is defining the output, right? So index is exactly what we have now. So simply take the numbers based on index, the last changed, can make the sum, the minimum, the maximum, average floor, and average ceiling. You can also add more inputs. To do that, you simply have to select that first A input, right? And then down here, you simply press that little plus. And as you can see, if we want to have maybe 11 or 12, right, then you can see all the created inputs will have the same amount of inputs.